Welcome to This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. I'm your substitute host, Bill Berg, as MJ Hammett and Del Scanlon are both on assignment tonight. Who is here is Michael Trzynski and Bill Berg, too. So, we have kind of a short program tonight because there weren't a whole lot of games. The season did just kick off, and we will have a little bit of game recap, but mostly we wanted to talk about some of the other things, preseason questions that came in, and that kind of stuff. And Bill, why don't you tell us some of the questions we've received from our new listener group?
Our patrons. All right, we got a question from Jeff Sauer, who was our, I think, second backer? Yeah, I think our second backer. He'd like to know our thoughts on the preseason poll, specifically Arrowhead and Sun Prairie. Well, Arrowhead is pretty easy to figure out with their place in the top 10. While they did lose 3 all-state seniors last year, Elijah Tormala, Dylan Cox on the blue line, and Caleb Beversdorf up front, they still have Jackson Carr. They still have Peter Genetempo in net. Arrowhead was 21-2-1 last year. That's the kind of record that'll get you in the preseason top 10 when you only, well, not only, that's 3 big seniors to lose, but 21-2-10 doesn't happen by accident. So that's pretty easy to explain why Arrowhead's there. Someone else is going to have to talk about Sun Prairie.
Sun Prairie, I mean, they're in there as an honorable mention. They were in the state tournament last year, as was West Salem, and those teams are both in the honorable mention. Sun Prairie did have a winning record last year in somewhat a weak section down there on Madison, but we did get several votes from coaches in the Madison area, and they may know more about Sun Prairie than I do sitting up here in Antigo or Trasher does in Wisconsin Rapids. I'm sure if MJ was on the line, he seems to know everything Big 8 that there is to know going on down there. He could fill us all in on Sun Prairie, like, who is the goalie that's going to be filling in for Sam Dunn, because he graduated, and he was one of the main reasons they did make it to the state tournament last year. But I guess I'm just gonna chalk it up to, we got votes from people down there in the Madison area who know more about Sun Prairie than we do.
Right, and we also kind of just had mentioned in our pre-podcast chit-chat that sometimes the voters have long memories, and they remember that Sun Prairie made it to state last year, so they'll probably be good again this year. So there's another take on it.
Well, and it's rare that Sun Prairie is bad. They can be middling from time to time, but they're never bad. And a team that's not bad is perfectly capable of making it to honorable mention in any given season.
And there you have it.
Right. When they're good, and when they're not good, they're kind of good. So somewhere in there. How's that sound? Sounds like we need to work out the kinks here. We're early in the year, so
yes, it is.
Bear with us.
We're early in the year and very kinky.
That's it.
That's going to take us up to a game recap, because Trasher saw a game that kind of surprised many people on many different levels on Saturday. Why don't you tell us about that, Michael?
Well, actually, it was on Friday, the 17th, up at Greenheck. Rock County Fury traveled to play the Storm, and definitely was a little bit of a surprise. The Fury ended up with a victory 8-4 in that game. Started out pretty fast. They scored the first goal, and then they scored another one about 12 minutes into the period. Storm came back to make it 2-1 toward the end of the period. Then the Fury, playing with a Fury, scored 2 goals in a 5-minute span in a second to take a 4-1 lead. And just when you thought the game was pretty much over, Central Wisconsin comes back and scores twice in a minute 19, or a minute 9 actually. That's 69 seconds to cut the lead to 4-3. And less than a minute later, Maggie Henschler scores for the Fury to make it 5-3, and that's how the second period ended. Third period, Fury scored early, well, not early, real early, 6 minutes into the period to make it 6-3. Storm came back with a goal 2 minutes later to make it 6-4. Coach Susans pulled his netminder with, I think, just under 2 minutes left, and she didn't come back out, and the Fury scored 2 empty netters to account for the 8-4 final. Maggie Henschler had 4 goals and 1 assist in that game. And the shots in the game were 33-29 in favor of the Fury. So, like we kind of had mentioned, it was like a month's worth of goals against the Storm and a month's worth of shots. And the Fury looked pretty good offensively. There was a whole lot of offense in that game, and I think, early on, the systems maybe aren't completely in place. I know Coach Susans for the Storm had said that he wished he had another week of practice before the first games, but when you have 24 to schedule, you got to fit them in as quick as you can. So he is looking at that. Plus, he lost 2 really solid defensemen from last year, Taylor Troy and Jamie Hendrickson. 2 big losses for a young team that is pretty good on offense, and they're going to kind of learn their way on defense here as they go along, guys.
How many games do you think it took before the Storm gave up their 9th goal last season?
Their 9th goal? I'm going to
say 6.
I'm going to say 7.
11.
11.
It was their 11th game of the year that they gave up their 9th goal. Now the next goal they give up will be their 9th. It could be their second game of the season. Unless they snuck a second game in there that I didn't notice.
No, they their second game will be on Friday in the Gobbler Cup up at Mosinee. So, yeah, they've only had 1 game so far. And, Pete knows that there's going to be some growing pains here with a young defensive core, and I mean, you can't just toss them out there right away and say, okay, we basically lost, let's call them all conference players or close to it, even though the Storm are independents, and have these, freshmen or sophomore or even juniors step in and take over at the same level that these girls did from last year. So, to maybe be an eye opener for Pete, but he's been doing this long enough, and I fully expect that before too long everybody will be going pretty good. So it was a good game. It was a very interesting game. It wasn't back and forth score wise, but it was back and forth momentum wise. And I mentioned in my article that every time it seemed like the Storm scored a goal, Rock County would come back with 2. So they just, gave her the gas and pulled away and ended up with an 8-4 win.
Well, and the Rock County scoring was led by Maggie Henschler and Zoe Stieg, and it's not like they came out of nowhere. Stieg's, this is her 3rd year. Henschler, it's her 4th. And, they're both, Stieg wasn't, but Henschler was a 20-plus point player each of the last 2 years.
Yep, and they got 2 kids from Albany. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, if it's Knopf or Knopf, but Alyssa and her sister Haley, and they are only freshmen and sophomores respectively. So, and I believe, if I heard right, they both played on a TW squad. So this team could be stacked. McKaylee Busher did well in net. She had 25 saves in the game, and I think as the season goes along and everybody gets acclimated to each other and playing, and this could be a kind of a surprise team, guys.
Alrighty. Preview of coming attractions. Maybe obviously not going to be the last we will hear from the Rock County Fury, especially with MJ right down there in their midst. I'm sure he'll have more to say about them as the season progresses and probably taking some of their games down there. Moving along, we had another patron question. Bill, what do you got?
Egan Ahern, who was our first patron, asked, what are your thoughts on the Springs ledgers for this season? I wonder why Egan Ahern would be asking that question. As far as I can tell, there are 56 Aherns that have gone through that program in the last 10 years. They're everywhere, just coming out of the woodwork. Like Sun Prairie, Springs is never bad. Last year I think they had 15 wins, which is a nice solid season. They did lose their top scorer from last year, Mitchell Grebe. That's always huge. Their top defenseman, who was their third leading scorer, is gone. That's big, but they returned goalie Colin Ahern. And several other players. They were a solid third place in point totals last season in the Badgerland. I don't remember how the Badgerland tournament turned out, to be perfectly honest. Badgerland Conference is unique in the state in that they only play each other once, and then they do a conference tournament, which is awesome, and how every conference should work.
And it never goes as expected.
Nope. But they were overall 15-9 last year. Appleton United was 15-8-1. Nina Hortonville Menasha was 16-8. So they were all right there within a game of each other on the year. I think Jeff Sauer had actually written an article for the site previewing his thoughts on the Badgerland. He thinks it's kind of Nina, Menasha, Hortonville, and everybody else. I think any of those three has a decent chance of taking the top spot in the conference. I think.
So by those three, you mean Nina, Menasha, and Hortonville?
No, Nina, Menasha, Hortonville, Appleton United, and Fondy Springs.
Oh, okay.
I think Alec Elkin has a little bit less help around him this year, at least upper class help than he did last year. Appleton United lost a couple of all-state players, including goalie Dylan Finney. I think that's correct. So it's going to be. I don't know that he made it all-state. He was one of our finalists. It's going to be an interesting year in the Badgerland. I think any of those three teams has a chance. And then don't count out Fox Cities and Waupun. I mean, Fox Cities was 16-7 last year overall. Waupun was 14-9-1. In terms of wins, those teams are all within 2 wins of each other from 14 to 16. So it could be a slugfest at the top there.
I guess I would have to agree with you. Nina Hortonville, Menasha, yeah, they do have Alec Elkin back, but they lost defenseman. Kind of the straw that stirred the drink back there. He was Nina Hortonville, Menasha's version of Chase Blackman. Travis Tremmel, that's him. Excellent defenseman. Moved the puck well, really set things up, set the table for all the other guys on that team, and he graduated. Hopefully they'll have, somebody to fill in for him. But yeah, either of those teams, I'd have to agree with you that the top three in that conference is most likely going to be the top three, and I'm not going to pick one over either of the other ones. Thrasher?
There you have it. I would agree. I think I saw Nina Hortonville, Menasha, all three of them play a couple times last year, and they were definitely the class of the conference. And I think they still will be. I think they're just going to come back a little bit more so than in the previous couple of years. So it'll be a little bit tighter of a race. But Elkin is, he's a difference maker. He's like, oh man, talk about Alzheimer's setting in. Ian from Waukesha. Man, why can't I remember his name?
Malcolm.
Boy, that's bad. That's it. Malky. Oh my God, he's gonna shoot me. He's kind of like that. You give him the puck, and he either scores the goal when he needs to score it, or he dishes it off to the guy who's wide open for an easy tap in when they need it. He's that kind of guy. So I don't think the Rockets are ever gonna be a middling team with him on it. But I do think that the Badgerland will be a little bit snugger this year as far as the team placement. So yeah, it'll be good race. It always is. There's a lot of good teams there, and there's always opportunity for one to pull off a surprise Cinderella season and come out of nowhere. I mean, who knows, you know? So the season has begun. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, all we know is that whoever leads in conference points going into the tournament is not going to win it.
That's a given. All right, that brings us to our third and final patron question from Jeff Sauer.
Yes, the previous Jeff Sauer. He'd also like to know our preseason thoughts on words we don't use. We'll say the Wisconsin Hockey Coaches Association American Family Insurance Player of the Year Award, not a copyrighted term owned by somebody else.
Yeah, but he's dead.
That's true. All right, Mr. Hockey. Although I think that's boring. I like the AFI WHCA Player of the Year. It's got way more words.
Yeah. Can I go first?
You can.
Okay, I've spent the better part of the evening compiling my list of finalists for the American Family Assurance Wisconsin Hockey Coaches Association Player of the Year Award, and my list is Alec Elkin. The aforementioned Nina Hortonville-Menasha player, Alec Elkin. I think he is I think he's head and shoulders above everybody else coming into the season. You know what's going to happen during the season, but coming in based on last year, yeah, that's my list. You guys can expand if you want.
Well, since Trasher's list is the longest, and we know that, we'll let him go last. I want to just make a brief mention of the people who aren't going to be eligible this year that would have been otherwise. That would be Josh Bolin of Wausau West. The University of Wisconsin commit is playing his senior year in the junior leagues for the Cedar Rapids Rough Riders. And then Aaron Grounds, the Hudson Ohio State University commit, is playing his senior year for the Minot Minotaurs in the NAHL. So those two are not going to be eligible. And we also know that while he would not have been eligible this year anyway because he's only a junior, UW commit Cole Caulfield is also playing juniors this year.
Well, that's not actually juniors.
He's doing something.
He's playing for the National Development Team.
That's even better.
Yes.
NTDP. Yes. They're
yes.
great. So
yes.
Cole Caulfield is there in, Ann Arbor?
Yes.
Like Jack Skilly and many other Badgers before him. So those guys are not going to be on the list. My list is twice as long as Burglar's. His list is really just a subset of mine because Alec Elkin is on my list as well. But mine expands it to add Jack Gorniak from West Salem. West Salem has put up some nice years the last couple of years, and I think Jack Gorniak is the straw that stirs the drink. He's their Mr. October.
Well, there you have it.
Reggie Jackson, was the straw that stirs the drink.
Yeah.
If you ask him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, my list is only 2.5 times longer than your list and 5 times longer than Burglar's list.
Wait, that means you pared it down.
Well, I did because I had some players on there that I could not remember if they were juniors or seniors this year or seniors last year, and 4 of them were seniors last year. So it helps to have rosters that have grad years on it. Some don't, and then you have to do a little research. But I think I got this right. So we'll go along with the 2 that you had talked about, Gorniak and Elkin, and I will add Trevor Hudacek from Eau Claire Memorial, goalie, who, according to the website, is a senior, and I'm pretty sure he's a senior. He had a nice year. He was, I believe, an all-state netminder last year, probably one of the best goalies in the state again this year. I'll put him on that list. And then I have a kid that scored 50 goals last year and was kind of almost unheard of and unheralded, but I bet you Tim Ebner knows him, and his name would be Jacob Dirks of Onalaska. He had 76 points last year, and I am pretty sure that he will be nominated at least, and he could very well be in the final 8. And then another kid that not too many people outside of the Madison area know is Carter Hopman from Edgewood. He had 27 goals and 15 points last year. I saw him play a couple of times. He can take over a game for the Crusaders as well. So that's my list of 5, and I know that I'm sure when people listen to our podcast, they will be more than happy to send their thoughts, and feel free to send it to trasher@wctc.net or staff at wisconsinprephockey.net.
I want to add one more.
Go for it.
I want to expand my list. And this is entirely on whether or not Coach Matt Borneman, who some on this podcast in the past have referred to as a butthead or something like that. I don't remember who it was and why they said it, but that phrase just comes to mind. If he leaves him at defense, Matt Winter could be a difference maker and really, he's like the Travis Tremmel and the Chase Blackton. He can control the game from the defensive point. Just that last year, about halfway through the season, Borneman decided they needed more offense, and they moved Winter up to a forward position, which kind of took him out of the running for the whole, defensive awards and that kind of thing. If they leave him at defense, Matt Winter could be a guy that you're going to hear his name late in the year.
Probably in the spring then, right? Late
Sure.
winter, early spring?
Winter, yeah, that's it, yeah.
Is March still considered winter, or is it spring?
Don't get me started.
I'm pretty sure in Wisconsin it's winter until June.
June, all right. Hey, I see that we got a new pledge from a new member on Patreon. We had a $5 pledge from Tom Braun.
Indeed.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yes, and it is time to thank our new patrons this week. This week is obviously the first week of our Patreon campaign, and our pledges this week are from Egan Ahern, Jeff Sauer, Tim Pranzini, longtime friend of Wisconsin Prep Hockey, Jeff Thornton, Jeff Lenz, Mark Gerothanis, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, John Earhart, Rick Franke, Ron Olson Jr., and the aforementioned Tom Braun. So thank you all for your pledges and your donations. They really do help us out a lot. Apparently we're very popular with dudes named Jeff. We've got 3 of them. So if you know any other Jeffs, send them the link. You can follow us at wisconsinprephockey.net or patreon.com/WIPH.
Outstanding. Thank you. We really appreciate it. It helps us out. We love this game. We love covering the sport, but sometimes our pocketbook doesn't always love covering the sport, and this helps us out. So we really appreciate it. It helps us get to the games, helps us pay for state tournament, and allows us to give better coverage by going to more games and getting the information out to you, our wonderful fans.
And we're about 40% of the way to our first goal. If we get up to $250 a month in pledges, these guys all agreed to it over the summer. They may not like it when I make them turn their cameras on, but we will record and stream Wisconsin Prep Hockey live on YouTube if we get up to $250 a month. I'll monitor. You can chat along with us as we record. The recording will stay up on YouTube. We'll still send out the podcast like normal. This year, we actually put a little bit of effort in, so you can get the podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher. You can still use the RSS feed like was there before to add to any podcast app of your choice.
And did we have anybody? Isn't there a certain amount that they can pledge that they can, will guarantee to go cover some game?
Guaranteed.
Want us to cover?
Guaranteeing us to go cover a game is a $100 pledge. We didn't get there.
Okay. All right.
Our highest pledge right now is a $50 pledge, which gives that person priority nomination for Game of the Week. So I imagine, just based on the list so far, that we will have a game of the week in Onalaska at some point this season. And quite frankly, they deserve one anyway, and we don't get over there often enough.
That's because there's no good way to get there from here. I guess for Dell and MJ they can go, but from here you can't get to Onalaska from up here. I think you have to go up to like Superior and then down I-35 over to the Twin Cities and then back. It's like really
a 7-hour drive.
Yeah.
Well, I can make it from Port Edwards, Wisconsin, which is located right in the middle of the state. Just a hop, skip, and a jump from the Wisconsin River across from Wisconsin Rapids. About roughly an hour and a half probably to Onalaska. So it's not too bad.
And you get to drive on Highway
173, baby.
173, which is just
the straightest road in Wisconsin.
Yes.
There's one that's straighter than that. Look on your map one time, and I think it's north from like Chippewa Falls up to wherever, Highway 27. I swear to God, that thing must have been laid out with a compass and straight. No, a ruler. Let's call it a ruler.
For that long?
A compass that would go in a circle.
That's almost 50 miles.
Yeah, that is straight 27 from just east of Cornell up through Ladysmith, all the way up to like right between Radisson and Winter, which are little villages up there. Is just one straight shot.
That baby is straight. You could put a ruler on that map and it wouldn't deviate from it one bit.
Too many lakes and trees to have straight roads in Wisconsin.
173 is a close second. It's pretty straight for about 20 miles or thereabouts. Boring. A lot of ditches and deer and all of that kind of good stuff. So.
And at the end, cranberry bogs.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we can make it over to Onalaska. Not a problem.
Okay. Everybody but me. Well,
everybody but
Bill.
you. Well,
and Bill Jr. You can't.
It's probably a shorter drive for Junior than it is for you.
I think it is.
It's only 10 hours.
Yeah, you could do it. Just leave at about 3 in the morning. You'll be fine.
All right. Are we done here?
Are we done? All right. I personally, and along with my cohorts, would like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Make sure that you eat enough, have a couple adult beverages, but be responsible about it. Enjoy your time with family and friends, and have a great holiday.
And keep your stick on the ice. On behalf of all of us, and even the missing MJ and Dell, Mike Trzynski, Bill Berg Jr., and myself, thank you for listening to this week's weird edition of This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. Good night.